In America, we're expected to work really hard, we're expected to be the best.
My mom and my dad are like nothing below a C.
You have to have a good GPA.
And then there's all these extracurriculars on top of that.
List all the things that you do, like tell us why you're the best.
I mean, I've done ice skating, I've done fencing.
Come to school, go to football, do my homework, go to bed.
When I'm on the basketball court, in the back of my head, I'm always thinking, this could be my scholarship.
If you're not the best, then you're like failing.
You can't fail in high school because you won't recover.
People all my life have been telling me, you have to get into a good college, you have to go to at least this college.
College applications is a bloodbath. I didn't get into Berkeley, but she did. I'm worse than her, even though that might not be the case.
I remember having these screaming fights with my dad where he was like, you have to apply to Princeton.
Are you gonna become a doctor? Are you gonna be a lawyer?
I just start getting really panicky. I get very upset with myself.
So if it's a triangle, you have sleep, grades, and friends. You have to pick 2 of them. You can't have all 3.
We're not these unlimited creatures that can take as much stress as possible and just keep it coming. There's like a breaking point.
It was a lot of pressure to do well in school, and I just could not keep up with the kids at all.
There's a certain point when people are like, I'm just gonna get ADHD pills, seems to work, and that's their solution to it.
Weed at some point became kind of outdated, but if you could get like Adderall, like, oh wow, you have Addy, that's so cool.
When SATs rolled around, one of the #1 questions was, did you use Adderall?
Everybody's pretty open about it. It's not like a no drug.
I just ended up buying Adderall from a friend in the bathroom. Like I bought it was like what, like $4 a pill? It's like limitless. I felt like I could do anything at all.
So my doctoral dissertation was an experiment where I shadowed 5 kids at a very high-achieving public high school for a year. And I was looking for what was working, right? What can we learn from these kids in this great high school to pass on to others? And instead, I saw kids who were getting ulcers from stress, and kids who were cheating and worrying about their grades, and kids who were taking someone else's prescription for a stimulant, Ritalin, Adderall. Why is all this happening? It's happening for a reason. One is we had a population boom happen. And so if you want to go to college in the United States, there are actually more students applying to college than ever before. And that's why the pressure to succeed in a certain narrow way to get the grades and test scores to get into college is so severe for kids. They feel like it's sort of a cheat or be cheated world. And if other people are doing that, I don't want to be the one to lose out because the stakes are really high.
If you had to say in a sentence or 2 how Lear has changed, that's your last task right now. In a nutshell, kind of bringing all this back together. For you, how has Lear changed at this point?
I think high school is super stressful. Being a senior, I'm in multiple AP classes, which have a lot of extra homework. So I'm having about 4 or 5 hours of homework every night, in addition to all of my college applications. Okay, so I have to take the essay during 5th, and then the test during 3rd. I'm screwed. Hello. Yeah, I'll see you later. But there's also the social aspect. Everything is online. It's very important to be present online and look cool and have your entire life there, but it brings about a certain amount of stress. And I also don't want to let anyone down. I'm president and vice president of multiple clubs on campus, so I have all these responsibilities, and so I just get overwhelmed very easily and super stressed out because there's so many things to do and just not enough time to do them.
I think a large portion of our American teenagers are under a lot more stress than they were 20, 30, and 40 years ago. What is it about this? Once upon a time, you were happy if students met the math requirement, maybe got through Algebra 2 or pre-calculus. Now there's almost this certainty that if you don't get through calculus, preferably advanced placement calculus, you really haven't completed a rigorous course of study. The intense pressure on getting into a brand name, top tier, or upper 1/3 college has really changed the dynamic of the high school experience. So I think parts of the academic program are very unhealthy, especially if you take them in large doses.
What's interesting is the problem of academic stress is really a systemic issue between lots of different players and stakeholders. So on the one hand, you point the problem at the schools themselves and you say, look, they're giving way too much homework, they're overloading the kids, there's too much pressure to take more college level courses than a typical college student might take. And then you have to look at the kids. A lot of it is caused by their peers putting pressure on them to reach this ideal goal.
I do a lot of work on the weekends. I try to get ahead as much as I can on the weekends. So I don't have a lot of time for friends because I'm so busy. So it's like I'm missing out on some of the fun aspects of high school because I'm so stressed out about finishing everything else.
Social media is a really big component in this entire picture. So one, social media reinforces that everything is possible. So people are posting about their good grades and they're posting about getting into college, but they're also posting about going out and having fun and going to the parties. And it makes it seem that a student can have it all.
The sense of a lack of reality happens. Everybody gets likes on Instagram, everybody's happy. That's not the real world. So they're seeing only a very distorted view of the world and of their peers, and that can cause depression and anxiety. I'm missing out, I'm not fitting in, everyone else is happy and I'm not. On the other hand, the parents are really a source of stress for kids in this systemic problem as well.
So I only get the car on Tuesday?
Yes.
Did you get your homework done?
Everything except for my Spanish and Lear. And I didn't do my Spanish because I didn't want to speak out.
Did you get your homework done? No.
No, it's almost done.
All right, it's Sunday night as well. We were supposed to talk college, do a status check on the applications.
I'm working on my essays.
I know you turned in essays to Miss Wynn.
I didn't get them back yet. I'll have them back tomorrow or Tuesday.
What's your gut feeling on how that's going to go?
Terribly.
It feels like an inhuman process because we're asking her to do too many things in a short amount of time. So should we set some time aside to this week to look at them?
Probably.
Do you want me to look at them? You still have to do, I don't know, 20.
17.
You have to do 17. I was just making a random number up. 17. You have to do 17 essays. Okay. I find that to be a little stressful. The tension that Lucy and I have is that this isn't my thing to knock out and get done. I just have to sit by and wait. And I think that's frustrating and hard. As a parent, I find it to be just as stressful, and yet I can do nothing about it.
You combine all of these things together, this punishingly difficult set of courses, all of these activities, friendships and relationships, your family dynamic, and you're just inviting an unhealthy level of stress to come into the world of adolescence. You're creating an environment where all kinds of unhealthy things breed.
Playing bass is really cool. I'm very used to learning in an academic environment, more fact-based and things are going to be tested on, and it's just different to learn about an instrument and become good at something like that. It's a unique process. That was bad. I have a learning disability, and so I take Adderall every day. I take a regulated dose that I get from a doctor.
You can see the strike-throughs. That's just for clarity and eliminating sort of the passive voice.
So should I just add that sentence in there? Will that fit fine?
Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a psychiatric disease that appears with inattention and hyperactivity.
The evaluations revealed that my processing speed was severely delayed. With the help of a specialist, I learned how I absorb information differently and also...
It's a condition that, if not properly treated, can result in poor impairment in education and social difficulties.
That also started to impact the way you felt about learning too, because it begins this sort of struggle.
Among the most frequent medications utilized for the treatment of ADHD are methylphenidate, Ritalin, and amphetamine, Adderall. They have the capacity to amplify the signals from a chemical that we call dopamine that is very important not just in regulating attention, but also in driving motivation.
My excitement for learning began to wane. I have friends who will say they feel like they're really bad test takers, or it's really hard for them to remain focused, and so my friends ask me for it. There's so much pressure, and every year it gets harder and harder to get into these schools, and it's sad that stakes feel so high in high school so that people are turning to drugs to improve their performance, but I think it's unfair for people to abuse things that other people need.
The number of prescriptions for stimulant medications have been going up and up and up and up. The greater the availability and access to it, the greater the likelihood that it will be abused.
I have friends who have prescriptions and will just not take it because they don't feel like they need it, and they'll deal it to people.
The prescriptions are pretty available and they're out there in the system, so it's ubiquitous. I'm in a hallway of a school and I literally hear a kid say, I have AP US History next period, pass me an Addy.
We have ratcheted up the demands on these kids so much that we shouldn't be surprised when some of them say, I need some help from a bottle, from a prescription bottle.
When I came in, I was a freshman. I took 16 units my first semester, which no one should do. And I freaked out. Like, I had panic attacks all the time, whatever. No one told me not to. No one was like, don't do that. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Except for, like, other students and who trusts other students, right? You're like, no, I can handle it.
Yeah.
Like,
How many units are you?
22.
Holy shit.
This is why we never see her.
Yeah.
What are you doing right now?
Exactly.
So, like,
I mean, you've had like 3 midterms this week already.
I sleep and I work, and like those are the 2 things that I do.
In college, you really have to make an effort to sleep enough. Definitely had to pull 2 all-nighters this week just because of the work that I had.
I mean, I just feel I'm the social sciences, and sometimes I get really anxious about tests and midterms and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then the anxiety just grows and grows, and to the point where I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm a little bit freaking out right now. I probably need to take something.
Yeah.
What can I take? What's out there? And that was the first time I tried Adderall, was because of that. So my first experience with Adderall was nearing the end, so a lot of midterms, lots of finals. And one night I just had so much reading to do, and I just decided, like, oh yeah, my friend has it. I'll take one, see how it feels.
I am a college freshman and I have ADHD, and I sell Adderall to kids around campus. My doctors seem kind of dumb. I go to my pediatrician still, and I'm like in a waiting room with babies, so they're just kind of rushing to the next patient. So they don't really, like, if you say like, hey, I need to up my Adderall dose, like I need to get a prescription refilled, and they're like, oh yeah. My mom, she doesn't really know what's going on, but I don't think she needs to.
If your child at age 16 says, Mom, I think I have ADHD, you should take that seriously. But it's also very possible that they are hoping to get free supplies of medicines that they use non-therapeutically and also might sell.
Every weekend people are like, oh my God, I have my midterms coming up, or I have my finals coming soon, or I just had this test and I need to cram, and that's when my work hour starts. I needed Adderall for like a while, but I've kind of learned to curb my Adderall doses and like Vyvanse for like tests and things like that.
You have 2 problems. You have these kids who are supposed to be taking them, who aren't, because they're either giving them away or most often selling them to the kids who should not be taking them. And it's not legal. When you take someone else's prescribed drug, you are breaking the law. That doesn't seem to be a deterrent for these kids.
The weekend right before midterms, I sold maybe to 35 different people. It's just a very kind of convenient way to make money. But at least I'm serving off the A+ drug.
I have in my life taken a prescription stimulant because I had a project in a subject that was really hard for me. It was due the next day, and the biggest thing stopping me from completing it was the stress that I felt. So I had a friend suggest to me that
taking a stimulant would take my mind off of that and that it would like do the work for me. Those are the exact words. It does the work for you. It's like cheating.
You know, the hype around them is that they do work. They do keep you up all night until you finish what you need to do. They do allow you to spend time with your friends while you can still, you know, stay up all night and study. They're kind of like a superpower, really.
It's almost like if you went into a running race and everyone else had like motors on their shoes. And then you were like, no, I'm above that. And they're like, well, you're gonna lose because everyone else has these crazy tricked out sneakers and you just don't by choice.
Kids think of these drugs as performance enhancing. In fact, it could have a really debilitating effect.
I think that if I had the belief that there was a medication that would make me smarter and would have no untoward effects, would I take it? I would consider it. The problem is that, number one, right now what the data is showing us is that overall stimulant medications do not improve your cognitive performance. They may make you believe you're performing better, but when you do an objective assessment of that performance, it's not better than when you have a placebo. But the second one is it does have deleterious effects. If you're giving stimulant medications to a kid that doesn't have ADHD, at a time in their life when their brain is developing very rapidly, that may interfere with those developmental processes.
Finals week is when I'm gonna crack.
Finals week, I think everyone's gonna have bloodshot eyes and like tired bags in their eyes.
Well, you know when the school's telling you that the library's open 24 hours for finals week and that people are sleeping on the couches and that the librarians bring donuts and coffee for you in the morning so you can just wake up and go study some more. There's something wrong there. I mean, I'm surprised I haven't gotten sick yet.
The human mind can only do so much.
Some people take the extra step, try to stay up. You know, medication, Adderall.
Exactly.
Honestly, the thing is magic. I could trade it for all the weed, all the alcohol, just to get Adderall. I mean, it's weird because you're energetic, but you feel relaxed. Like, you can feel your heart beating, but your body's very calm. Your brain is always moving and thinking of new things.
Do you have ADHD?
I do not. I do not have ADHD. My mom had been tested and everything for everything. I have no learning disability whatsoever. I looked at all the symptoms. I've been trying to get prescribed Adderall since I freaking knew about it. The first time I did Adderall, the school I was going to was extreme, like prestigious, like college preparatory school, and I just could not keep up with the kids at all. I wasn't on their level, but I had to get into college, and so I thought maybe Adderall, or Vyvanse or Adderall would be extremely helpful, which it was. Like, I just remember, like, I was up all night listening to blasting music and writing the entire chapter, all chapters by hand on a notebook paper, and kids would come the next day. I'd show kids, and kids would be like, "How did you do this?" I was like the man. And I felt like nobody can mess with me right now. Like, I could take on anybody. Like, and after I was on, like, my friends told me, "You're never using Adderall again," because, like, I guess I tried to fight one of my friends because I was really, like, aggressive.
One of the consequences of using a stimulant medication like Adderall is that it gives a false sense of confidence. But the problem is that's not where real confidence comes from. And what it also reinforces is needing to take medication in order to attain that feeling versus building that feeling internally.
Because of Adderall, I'm in college. I honestly cannot see myself continuing my college experience without it.
When a 16-year-old or 17-year-old starts taking Adderall in order to study harder and please his parents or teachers or college application people, that's not his fault. It's our fault.
I thought college was gonna be a whole different experience. Like, the work is just really overwhelming.
If all we do is tell students, you have to succeed, you have to succeed, you have to succeed, all they think about is, how do I succeed? And they will do whatever they feel they need to do in order to please us.
Do you ever worry that you're addicted to it?
I'm never worried that I'm addicted to it. No. No.
When I was little, like, my dad would take me to like different colleges, like, from a young age, and be like, "Oh, like, this is like where I want you to go to school," or this or that, telling me about like SAT scores when I'm like 10 years old, and like just gnarly things like that, and having really high expectations of me. And the only thing that ever really got me to that level was pharmaceutical stimulants like Adderall and Vyvanse. When my parents got divorced, my grades started to slip, and that's when I started like abusing it. Adderall has always been a big part of my story.
When I was like 13 or 14 is when I first started using Adderall, and I had no clue really what they were. I didn't know it was an amphetamine. I didn't know. All I knew was like I took it and I was like on top of things, and then
On Superman.
like Superman.
Superman. It tastes like candy. It tastes like Smarties. Like Adderall, you snort it, it's like a good feeling going up, and it's a good feeling going down.
Yeah, it's like it's candy.
A lot of the kids here at Newport Academy will report that their parents put a lot of pressure on them.
School over everything, school before sports, school before friends. I felt as if I had to live up to that expectation. They gave me this amazing life. I need to give them, in return, good grades. If I fail, I'm dead, basically. Life's over. It was stressful. I didn't like it. I wanted to have fun. There was a point where I just said, screw it, I'm kind of giving up on myself.
I say the kids that end up in treatment have subconsciously called a bluff on the lie that the system has told them, that if they just work as hard as they can, study as hard as they can, make the best grades they can, do 50 million extracurricular activities, they're gonna get into a great college, they're gonna go to grad school, they're gonna get a great job, and then they're gonna be happy. And our kids have called BS on that lie, and they're like, I wanna be happy now. Right? So a lot of them have turned to self-destructive behaviors that increase dopamine and make you happy in the exact moment. It's not a sustainable form of happiness, but it does make you feel better in the moment.
I called it a hoot because I felt like an owl. It was like, you know what I mean? Like I was just like, whoa, and you know, thinking I'd do a bunch of school. Next thing you know, I'm like cleaning, and I never clean. You know what I mean? But like, school still never got done for me. I'd fall back a year and a half in school, and I'm like snorting Adderall every single day, anytime I can.
Snorting a drug feels great right then and there. Quick, instant gratification.
When people want to abuse amphetamine or Adderall, they typically tamper with the drug in order to extract the active ingredient, then snort it, smoke it, or inject it. And when you do that, amphetamine can be very addictive.
It got to a point for me where it was like I'd stay up days, like, you know what I mean? Like days just to like find it. I justified my using where it was like, it's not bad unless I do meth, coke, or heroin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I never got there. I mean, I'm grateful for that, but it's all the same thing to me.
Yeah.
Adderall is an amphetamine. It's just dangerous.
When you increase the dose of amphetamine that you are taking or you administer it by another route, the effects can be not very dissimilar to those that you observe with methamphetamine.
It produced a lot of aggression in me. I was very angry all the time. I was uptight and I was violent. My friends, the people who cared about me, started straying away from me. And I couldn't look in the mirror without being kind of ashamed of who I became.
Yeah, no, I definitely did the same thing. Like when I started doing Adderall, it was just because I wanted to get my essay done, and by the end of it, I started doing meth. Meth became the new Adderall for me, and just to get schoolwork done and out of the way. But I ended up staying up all night, and then I'd go to school, and I'd stay up all night and go to school, and eventually not really learning anything. Like if I remember I'd take a lot of uppers and my heart would start like beating really fast, and I'd kind of like freak out, and I'd be like, okay, like what do I do with this? And like I feel like a normal person would be like, oh, maybe I should like stop doing drugs, and I would just be like, oh, Xanax will help. So I just like would take a lot of Xanax, and then I'd like black out, and I'm like, what happened?
When you take amphetamine all night long and you basically are exhausted, you cannot fall asleep. So what many people then do is actually combine them with a drug that will sedate them. The problem is that this combination of stimulants with alcohol or stimulants with benzodiazepine can be quite toxic.
Before I came into Newport Academy 2 years ago, I was in this like psychosis because I was up for a week straight, and I ran away from my house, and I was only 17 too, so it's like...
Just confused.
You know?
I had no idea trying to relieve that stress I had from schooling would lead me down that path.
I see so many kids that are driven out of fear of failure. fear that they're not going to do the right thing, fear that they're going to get a bad grade, fear that they're not going to make the team, fear that they're not going to get into college. But there's nothing they can do about it right now, except for escape in one way, shape, or form. And what drugs and alcohol provide is a momentary escape from that painful reality. So from my vantage point, I think our schools in general need a massive overhaul. If we were to actually ask kids of what they wanted and what makes them happy and provide some sort of loving, compassionate environment, they wouldn't feel the need to escape that.
And you're going to just gently open your eyes. And I wanted to continue our conversation about stress and just say briefly one thing that you think might cause stress for you in the next year. As a counselor here, I counsel kids on any matters, in their life, especially academic, social, emotional.
So next year I'm going to be a senior and I am taking 3 IB classes, which require a lot of work and concentration and such. And I don't know, I guess what will for sure stress me out is just the thought of the future. What comes next after high school? College, or okay, what happens,
When a student comes to my office, I often see them come through the door, not breathing, with their shoulders kind of up by their ears, just looking like sometimes they're gonna just break down.
When I'm stressed, I become very intense. So I tend to go into hermit mode, or that's what I call it. I just distance myself from everyone. I am a very anxious person. Sometimes I push myself a little too hard. And in fact, I've gotten so immersed into wanting to go to college and to do my best that I've gotten to a point of developing social anxiety, and it's just hard.
One of the reasons why I want to teach you meditation and yoga and some of these other exercises so that you can really start to get in touch with what it is that you want and what are your real gifts, so that you can make sure that you're going to a place that you really want and not some place that you're just assumed to go because it's the next thing that everyone usually does. So I'm happy to keep talking to you about that. And then on an inhale, you're gonna press your ankles back into your hands and lift your chest up. Awesome, guys. Go ahead and breathe into your chest. What I see yoga doing for these kids is giving them a way of getting back into their bodies. And exhale down and connect with their breath and actually take the time to remember that it's not about doing something perfectly or about the way that it looks to each other, but it's just to learn about their own process and how they actually approach challenge and how they respond to a perceived failure. You start feeling tired, just breathe in a little bit.
Yoga's been super fun, and I really hope I can, pursue it. So once again, I don't dwell so much on myself, but change it, actually change it, and just have a better and healthier life for myself.
Then you have some obligations.
I'd really like to see that as part of high school, students develop an interest area and then get rewarded for that. You can be rewarded for following your passions, and that there are multiple pathways to successful exit from high school.
What I want you to do are write down some of the thoughts that you have. These can be positive, negative, neutral.
One of the hopes is that mindfulness will help adolescents develop skills that will enable them to respond differently to stress so that they won't feel the need to engage in destructive behaviors.
Maybe it's important for parents to step back and be like, what you're doing right now is good enough, and I'm happy with you, and I'm proud of you.
I think that if we gave them the tools, not how to succeed all the time, but sometimes the tools of how to fail, it wouldn't be so traumatic and something that they want to avoid to the point that they get hooked on amphetamines.
Adults and educators have to help point out to these kids the long-term implications In the long term, what are you doing to your body? Are you making the moral choice that you want to make? Is this the person you want to be? Are you forming a habit that you won't be able to get out of? None of those things are they able to really see as fully as the adults around them can.
I don't know what it's going to look like, the change that stops things from being this way, but I know it's inevitable. I'm just worried about like what has to happen before everyone collectively is like, okay, this is not good.